Hi guys, I'm the Dutch Movie Guy, and today I'm reviewing Ahsoka. This is the latest novel to come out in the new canon of Star Wars. I got this on Tuesday. I finished reading it today. Today for me is Thursday. So within 48 hours I was done with the book, and that has two reasons. One, it's by far the shortest canon book so far, and the other reason is because it's good. I'm not sure though if it is the shortest of the canon novels, because I don't know how long Heir to the Jedi really is, and I probably will never find that out, but this is the shortest that I've come across so far. Anyway, before I go into my review of the actual book, I have to say what I think about the character of Ahsoka, because it's a little bit of a story that I have. If this book had been announced 1 year ago and I would have heard about it, I would be like, are you fucking kidding me? This is not happening. I would not take it seriously, like, at all. Because initially, when Ahsoka was introduced in the Clone Wars, I hated her. With all of my heart. She was my most hated character in all of Star Wars when she was introduced in the Clone Wars movie. She had terrible dialogue, cringe-worthy dialogue. I hated the idea of Anakin having a Padawan between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. It was just that everything about her pissed me off. Everything about her was just, no, I can't take that shit. However, there is a reason that I eventually got this book, and that reason is called Rebels, which is a series that I love. And when she was introduced at the end of Season 1 again, and then she got a lot more to do in Season 2 of Rebels, that was the part when I started to really like her. I have to say that throughout Clone Wars, she got better. Like, you saw an arc. I won't say I'm a fan of that arc, but, like, she wasn't as terrible as when she was introduced in the movie. However, it was just like at the end of Clone Wars, I was still like not really feeling it. Oh wait, now I'm spoiling Clone Wars. Well, if you have any interest in Ahsoka, then you have seen Clone Wars and Rebels, I assume. If you haven't, then that's your fault. Anyway, because of Rebels, I really got interested in her character, and then when I heard that she was getting her own novel, and the novel would explain what happened to her between her leaving the Jedi Temple at the end of Clone Wars and when she got back into the rebellion with Rebels, I was like, yeah, sure, that's interesting. I'm intrigued. I want to know more about that. Now, before I go into my actual review of the book, I will say I won't spoil the book. If you haven't read it yet, you'll be fine. This might convince you into reading it. And besides just some things that I will say about the book, I won't spoil the plot points. So as I said, this book describes what Ahsoka has experienced since she left the Jedi Temple, then she survived Order 66, and then what happened after that to make sure that eventually she ends up with the rebellion in Star Wars Rebels. Throughout the entire book, this book had my interest. I was just like, oh, this is interesting to read. It's not one of my favorite canon books, but it was just interesting to read what happened to Ahsoka. It takes place, I believe, 1 year after the Rise of the Empire, so the end of the Clone Wars. I'm not 100% sure, because the only thing that we get is that there's Empire Day at the beginning, and throughout the book it has some time jumps of weeks/months. So I don't know how much time is passed through the book, and I don't know exactly where it ends. But I know that at the beginning, it's the first Empire Day, and Empire Day celebrates the anniversary of the Empire, and in that case it's 1 year. That was something that bothered me a little bit, because the book doesn't have an opening crawl. Every book I've read so far has an opening crawl and explains where we are, when we are, and this didn't really do that. So it was a little annoying at the beginning. The beginning was also a little bit slow/boring, so it was a little hard to get into, but it picked itself up soon enough, and you really fly by these pages fast, because they're really short pages compared to all the other canon novels. So I got through it pretty fast, and when it got better, it did get pretty good actually. What I quite liked about it is that they explain how she survived Order 66 and where she's at right now in the galaxy, like where she is at the beginning. She is trying to just stay away from the Empire as best as she can. So she travels to worlds where the Empire's presence is not there yet, so that she has a little bit of freedom. However, everywhere she goes, the Empire kind of follows her because the Empire is slowly building itself. This is just 1 year after the rise of the Empire, so it does kind of make sense that they haven't gotten to every world in the galaxy yet. However, they're growing very quickly, so yeah, eventually Ahsoka is out of options, and then she has to deal with that. Like, how does an ex-Jedi that still has the Force and she has lightsabers, so how does she deal with that? That is what the book explains, and I found that to be interesting. I didn't find it to be anything big, mind-blowing. I read better books, I recognize that, but I found it interesting enough to make sure that I read it in 2 days, which is a record for me. That is also because it was really short. But like, yeah, in 2 days I got through this and it was fairly easy to read. I think the fact that it is so easy to get through is because the story is pretty straightforward, a little bit directed towards kids. I think this book is a little bit more kid-like than the others. Not that much though, because there are moments when this book goes dark. Some of the characters that you get to know die at some points, which is like harsh. But as far as the canon books go, there are canon books like a Lost Stars, like a Bloodline, that really engaged me, really gripped me, really were interesting to me. Does it have to do with the fact that the main character is someone who I did not really like in Clone Wars? Maybe. I don't really know. I found her to be the most interesting character in this book, which is like a good thing. I mean, if you have a book called Ahsoka, it better be about Ahsoka, right? Yeah, that was the case. That is also to say that besides Ahsoka, I did not feel anything really for the characters. There are like 2 characters that I cared the most about, but not anything like a Thane Tyrell in Lost Stars or Ciena Ree in Lost Stars. You have 2 sisters, Mayara and Canon, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who are the most prominent characters beside Ahsoka in the novel, but they weren't as gripping as some others. They were interesting enough though to get me through the book. What also is actually quite nice, actually I quite liked, is the references to Clone Wars. If you've seen the Clone Wars TV series, then you will get the references when she thinks about them. If you haven't seen the Clone Wars, then I just spoiled the Clone Wars, because at the end she leaves the Jedi Temple, and that is like one of the big spoilers at the end of Clone Wars. So if you've not seen the Clone Wars, that's your fault. That's not my fault. That's your fault. But it's nice to have those references. It's nice. Like, I know the Clone Wars, and you have the moments that she thinks about when she was on Onderon with Saw Gerrera and those guys, and when she was on Felucia helping the farmers. Those kind of references are nice, and they're just welcome when they come along. So I quite like the callbacks to the Clone Wars, even though I wasn't a huge fan of her then. I think in the end, Ahsoka was made for the fans of Ahsoka. I've heard the fans raving about this book. Me, as not as big a fan of Ahsoka, I liked the book. It was fine. If you want another nice canon book, get it. It's not going to be in your top 5 canon books, but it's a nice addition to the universe. It gives more insight into who Ahsoka is. I will give Ahsoka a 7.5 out of 10. And if you haven't paid for a copy of the book or anything, I think the audiobook is a good idea, because the voice actress who voices Ahsoka in Rebels and Clone Wars, Ashley Eckstein, she actually recorded the audiobook. So I think that's quite cool that you actually have her voice narrating the book in that case. So I'd say get the audiobook if you have the money for it. Anyway, that's all I can really say about Ahsoka. And now I wonder, have you read it? And if so, what do you think about it? Do you like it more than I do? Are you an Ahsoka fan? Did you like her back in Clone Wars? Or do you agree with me and you didn't like her back then? Please, whatever you think, let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you've liked my review and you want to see more of my movie, trailer and Star Wars reviews, click right here.